Okay, we're live.
Welcome. So happy you're joining us today. This is Creating Zola Mondays, and we have with us very special topic we want to cover. I'm Linda James Myers, the past president of the Association of Black Psychologists and moderator of Creating Zola Mondays. I'm going to teach you today about how to create some Zola within your own being. So that being said, let the other panelists introduce themselves.
Okay, I'm Harvey Linder. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where I am an independent consultant, clinical consultant, and chair of the board of the Cultural Wellness Center. And in ABSI, I'm also a member of the ABSI Ethics Committee and a past regional rep and past chair of the Minnesota chapter.
I'm Dr. Jonisha Hickson. I'm a school psychologist, trained as a clinical psychologist though, but right now in school. I'm also the DC ABCI chair and public relations. So I'm excited to do some grounding breath work led by our very own. And so, yeah, I'll pass the mic to him.
Yeah, my name is William Parham. I'm a healing circle facilitator. I facilitate circles in Eugene, Oregon with kids, and also help run the crisis program with Sawabona Healing Circles. And one of my areas of expertise and one of the things that's really important to me are accessible tools that people can access on their own individually to relieve trauma and relieve some of the stress that we pick up in this world. And one of my favorite tools that I like to use is somatics. And so, what is somatics? Somatics means relating to or affecting the body. Somatics encompasses the mind-body connection and teaches us that our mind leaves imprints of energy in our body that we can feel and connect with. The term was created in 1976 by Thomas Lewis Hanna, who was a movement theorist and philosophy professor who would go on to create the Hanna School of Somatics. Today, somatics therapy or somatic movement is used to help folks with complex trauma process these feelings in our body. A somatic practice is any activity that intentionally looks at this mind-body connection. Somatics is a school of thought that connects the internal felt body to the external perceived body. Our brains are connected neurologically to help us function, and that at times can be threatening. Our bodies react to perceived threats physically and at times subconsciously. When we tense up before impact, when we blink rapidly under stress, and when we breathe at a more rapid rate are all examples of a somatic response that can be triggered unconsciously. So I want y'all to think about a time that you got some bad news, or you heard some stressful news, or you heard anything that is coming out of the White House right now. And I want you to just think about that feeling that you had, that first feeling before you could even process that thought. But just what was it that you felt internally or externally in your body that was a split-second reaction? And so the body keeps score, not just your own score, but the intergenerational score of our collective elders and ancestors. We carry forward intergenerational trauma from our elders and our ancestors. I want to say that again. The trauma that we have today, we will pass down to our ascendants. 400 years of systematic oppression and white supremacy that has been passed down to our people generationally. As African ascendants, our bodies carry norms and social traditions and spiritual practices that have been demonized, othered, policed, politicized, and oppressed in various ways and forms. By using these ways of beings to find healing, we take the power back from those narratives and we give healing to our ascendants and our ancestors. This can also be called generative somatics. Generative somatics is the concept that patterns of pain can indicate the mass or intergenerational trauma people are surviving. Now, each of us have the power to feel more, heal more, and move forward our desires for liberation and justice as a Black collective. All of us here at Creating Zola Mondays believe that Black folks deserve culturally affirming spaces to process these complex intergenerational traumas. Somatic work can connect us to our African-centered rituals and practices that have real value and benefit for healing and shoring ourselves up. We aim to bring that which is unconscious to the conscious so that we can work through that and bring healing to our collective. For many of us, our bodies are the biggest indicators of shame in a society that clings to Eurocentric beauty standards that teach us that our Black bodies are shameful. We are shamed and teased in our community as children that works as a social conditioning that serves the work of colonizers to disembody Black folks. By reclaiming our beauty and identity, we do the work of de-indoctrination and engage in the very African traditions of Black joy. Our Black bodies were meant to experience joy and love through these beautiful expressions. We can find healing and self-reliance. Oppression seeks to deny the beauty of the house of our wisdom, intellect, and spirit. Oppression uses shame to erode the confidence of these things encompassed in our beings. Perceptions of specific physical attributes play very real roles in the outcomes of people's lives and manifest in our psyche and in our body. If we change these narratives and perceptions, we can heal and make ourselves more self-reliant, finding solace in the medicine of self. Through internal movement, breath work, body scans, and journaling, we can accomplish our somatic goals. So now that I was curious if anyone has any questions before I move on to 2 somatic exercises.
I do, Dr. Parham. I'm interested in, you described a lot about trauma and the negative impact of traumatic experience. Does the somatic understanding say anything about the epigenetic memory of triumph?
It does, and that's matter of fact. While I was going through this, I was thinking that I didn't really address or frame the epigenetic triumphs that we have in our soul that are evident in our being, in the creativity, the resilience that we as a people have, the ability to accomplish what we have accomplished in spite of the system that has been set up for us to fail. And not just our survival, but the fact that we exist and we keep building. So yeah, that and some of the somatic practices that we will go through today, I want you to keep in mind that epigenetic triumph in that when we are remembering our ancestors and our elders.
Thanks so much. I think that's so very important because at some point, as we work through some of the negative energies and that unification, we will come to a place where we have a sense of triumph and we can work toward building that and strengthening that. And I think that is so necessary at this day and time. So I'm so glad you're here with us today to share processes that you used and found effective.
Mm-hmm.
Shay. I was gonna say, I heard you mention The Body Keeps the Score, which is a great book by Vanderpool. And I cited it heavily in my dissertation, which is a novel theory on the development of Black American activist identity. And during that process and some other writing projects, I remember just, focusing on the epigenetic memory of trauma and the way that we take, it's called The Body Keeps the Score by Vanderpool. And so I remember focusing on the negative, negative, negative. And I remember, and now I always hear their voices, Nana Linda and Dr. Bethea. They're like, you're so negative. Like, you're such a Pisces. You're so emotional. Like, what about the positive? What about the joy? So when you were talking about that, I'm thinking about, yeah, like we have a lot in our DNA that are, ancestral heritage gifts that do, like you said, speak to those triumphs and those joys. And I love that there are other resources outside of, white literature like Vander Kolk who do point to that ancestral memory, which someone put, I love that the way he put that in the chat. And then I mentioned my grandmother's hands after like they told me that they snapped me out of that Western view that pain is our only story, and that's the only starting point for African history in in the States. And then when I shifted to my grandmother's hands, and I'm not saying like that book is perfect, right? I think Rizma Menakem is from the Twin Cities, Dr. Linder, right? I had some critiques there, but I still like how he shifted it to an African perspective a bit more. But I'm so excited, William. I'm so excited to have practical tools and to do, grounding. But I just wanted to say that. Thank you, Nana Linda and Dr. Bethea. Shout out to her, our president, for always reminding us to shift that thinking from the negative to account for both. And
So both you and William have talked about how the body keeps score.
Mhm.
Can you say a little bit more about that?
yeah.
Both of you?
So The Body Keeps the Score is a book by
No. I don't care about the book. I
oh, you don't
want
care
to
about the
hear
book.
about what you have learned about the body keeping score.
Okay, do you want me to go first or you, William? And I also know Dr. Linda probably been trying to chat for a minute. Sorry.
You go first, Dr. Jojo.
Okay, so what that means, Nana Linda, is right. It's rooted in neuropsychology. It's just essentially that even if we don't have a conscious awareness that things might be triggering us, that our body can still respond to it. So even if we're not able to voice that this smell is making me anxious, this smell is making my stomach knot down, making me sweat, our body knows like it's bringing us back to a time where that smell did signify something terrible that might have happened to us, like the smell of a fire or the smell of certain foods. And so when we say the body keeps the score, my understanding is that our body is collecting data, I guess, on our experiences, and that even if our brain is disconnected from that experience and whatever triggers might be associated with it, our body is still reacting. I feel like I'm talking in circles.
Can you give an example of how you've experienced that to be true?
So I could build onto that in terms of the way that the body will hold on to that is that, let's say you were in a traumatic event and something really bad happened, and now there is a pain that you feel in the back part of your shoulder anytime you are under stress. That is your body holding on to that memory of stress, but that our body can hold on to those physical feelings ancestrally, so that that pain that you feel in your lower back when you hear bad news, is your body keeping score and storing that traumatic data, that traumatic information that's encoded onto you. Now, our body can also keep joyful scores, and that is one of the things that I think we as a people can really focus on is how do we bring that joyful score out of ourselves.
I think that's so important because my grandfather used to smoke a pipe. And I remember going for a walk and there was a gentleman in the park who was smoking a pipe. And I immediately went to my grandfather and his presence just from smelling the pipe. So that was a very positive, I guess, illustration of the body keeping score. Or is it?
No, yeah, that happens to me, Nana Linda, all the time. My grandma, she used to smell like lavender and spearmint gum, and I lost her when I was very young, 5 years old. But anytime I smell lavender, and it could be, I could be in a closed environment with no vegetation, and I smell lavender, and I'm like, oh, like my grandma's here, like I feel, I'm cool, like she's visiting me. So things like that. And then I was also going to bring forth the example of when I was in graduate school, I had a professor use the N word, hard ER, because she was citing like a super old APA article. And I remember the physical sensations that I felt, feeling like I never experienced like being called that word. Um, or like, I guess I never felt the intensity that maybe our ancestors in the past have felt when they heard that word, but I felt it in that moment and I got angry and I felt, like, I don't know, just really tense, and other Black scholars in the class felt the same way. But I'm so sorry, Dr. Linder, you've been trying to speak for a while. Maybe do you have any thoughts?
I'm going to hold off on it. Actually, Dr. Parham was talking about making the unconscious conscious. And I think he was going to lead us through some exercises of how you do the somatic work. And so I wanted to let him do that, but also I wanted to ask him about the other side of it, like as we become conscious of the things that have happened in our past, and as we work to change them, are you going to, at this, today or in the future, give us some guidance on how do we make the conscious unconscious?
That is a great question, and I don't know if I think somatic work focuses on creating a connection with your body and your thought. And so I think that as you start to focus on what type of ways your body feels when you're under stress, if you can become more connected to that, then I think that will give you practice in becoming more connected consciously to what's going on internally. Somatic work, I think it focuses a lot on being able to decode kind of like these unconscious body feelings. And I think as you develop a somatic practice, I know there are times where I can say, oh, my neck is hurting a lot. I'm stressed. Like I know this is coming from stress, and be able to understand if this is kind of like a trauma-induced pain or if this is actually a physical-induced pain.
Hmm. Dr. Myers, you seem to be speaking, but muted.
Sorry about that. You can't read lips? No. Were you asking
I'm
about
not very
making
good at it.
conscious, unconscious? And if so, I'm curious about when would you want to do that? And what's the context for that?
Yeah.
Was that?
I think that was great.
Because you said, are there any practices that would make the conscious unconscious, as if you kind of want to push something down? Is that how I'm understanding it?
So how do we, as we learn, as we become more conscious of the kinds of things that have affected us intergenerationally in the past and the things that are affecting us now, as we become more conscious of what those things are and what our response should or should not be, how can we make our consciousness, how can we embed that consciousness into our unconscious? Because we're not aware of the things that come up from our unconscious, until they become conscious. It's like till they come into consciousness. But in order to change ourselves, in order to change all of our physiological responses, we have to be concerned not just about bringing forth what's in the unconscious, but embedding into the unconscious what we become consciously aware of as we learn.
I think I think it's also important that we engage as a community
Mhm,
in conversations like this,
mhm,
because the we can do all the somatic work on ourselves, but it doesn't happen in a vacuum.
mm,
And that trauma that we experience as a people didn't happen in a vacuum. And I think that the more that we engage in this in conversation and raise consciousness about that, I think those are ways that we can kind of not have to use practical tools to get to those answers.
mhm,
I also think what you're mentioning, Dr. Linder, is the work, and maybe this is just my perspective as an early career professional trying to nurture my development in such a way that I'm a trauma psychologist. But I think the thing that you're talking about is integrating our maybe negative experiences in such a way that if we do smell a smell that might have previously brought forth a negative experience, it doesn't
mhm,
trigger us as much anymore. And we
mhm,
can, and I think that William is right. I think it takes the bringing that to conscious awareness and then integrating that experience and having a corrective experience, make it a part of our narrative. So, doing some of the exercises that we'll hopefully be doing today, so that if we do experience like a quote unquote trigger, we can say, all right, let me just breathe. I don't want to have a negative experience or be pulled back to the past. This is what it is now. And while I acknowledge that this happened to me, I'm safe now. I'm here now and I'm okay now until it becomes kind of automatic, right? That when you smell this smell that might have previously been traumatic, it's like, damn, that happened, but
right.
let me move forward. Or maybe you integrate a new memory into your experience.
Well, and Dr. Parham was referring to the fact that we need sometimes we need community and we need to work on these things as a community. It reminded me, that and what you just said reminded me of something that Resma Minicum told me. I've known Resma for decades, and I followed in his footsteps when he left African American Family Services and went over to Iraq to uh, to be a trauma therapist over there, dealing with people who had, been in explosions and all kinds of things like that. And when he came back, he told me that this is an example of how we sometimes need to learn to rely on others and not think that we can solve all these things ourselves and become aware of these things by ourselves. Uh, but when he came back from Iraq, he had an experience here in downtown Minneapolis, walking down the street, and a bus went by. And the buses make this kind of hissing sound, like they have these air brakes. And so there's a hiss, and then they stop. So he's walking down the street, a bus goes by, it makes this hissing sound. It turns out it's the same sound that the mortars would make when they were coming in to, when the enemy was firing mortars into the camp where he was staying. And typically what would happen is you hear this sound and then there's an explosion. And so people get conditioned to, when they hear the sound, they dive for cover because they know what follows the sound. And so he was back in Minneapolis and walking down the street, and the bus made a sound that was the same sound or similar to what the martyrs make when they came in. And he found himself diving onto the pavement on the sidewalk and realizing that, oh, wait, like I've been affected by this trauma that I was over there treating people for. And so he had to turn to some of his colleagues here who are other trauma therapists to treat his own trauma that he didn't realize that he had been traumatized by the experience of going over there to help people deal with their trauma.
Yeah, I think it's. Oh, sorry, no, Linda.
No, I was just going to affirm what you'd said earlier, Dr. Jonisha, about making the unconscious conscious. And once you do the work to make the unconscious conscious, then you can replace in your conscious awareness those ideas, those thoughts, those assumptions that now become embedded in your so-called unconscious, and it will continue to flourish and grow. So I just wanted to reaffirm what you said there.
Thanks, Nana Linda. I love getting your cosign like that. I was gonna say, I think for viewers who might not be psychologists or mental health professionals watching, it's important for us to underscore that the major apparatus of trauma work or trauma informed work, if you will, trauma centered work is to regulate the nervous system, right? When we talk about the body keeping a score, we're referring to the reptilian brain, which is not privy to, our higher order thinking. And so if it thinks it's in danger, then it's going to react like Resma, right? He heard that sound. His body's not like, okay, let me logically scan the environment. It's just acting automatically based on previous experiences. So I think the purpose of trauma informed work or some of the exercises we're going to engage in shortly is to regulate the system and to make it less sensitive to things that might be a trigger.
Excellent. I just have to throw this in and kind of as a joke, but not a joke. Your president has banned trauma as one of the words we can use.
No.
Yes.
Trauma. No, I'm just playing.
Wow.
So that ought to eliminate it, right?
That'll take care of it, right?
No more, no. And I think what Dr. Hickson was just saying about understanding the feelings that we feel, those subconscious feelings that, like what Resma was feeling when you heard the hiss, and being able to, when you feel that sensation arise in your body, honor that sensation, and then be able to work to kind of put yourself in a better window of tolerance to get out of that stress reaction and get to a place of more even kill.
I think that's why I love, I promise I'm not a paid sponsor, but that's why I love African or Black psychology, because it reminds us that we are deeply rooted and grounded, and we have an abundance of tools, right, that we can draw from to change or to not get pulled back or stuck in the past, right? And I think that I love concepts like syncophy, which is to go back and fetch it, but to not be stuck in it, to use it to inform the future. So if y'all not, learning about Black or African psychology, I got to get with the program.
William, I'm eager to hear you take us through these processes.
Yeah, so thank you for the segue. I'm going to go ahead and go through a somatic foot scan. So I want you to take a moment and feel your feet. Feel your toes. Feel each toe individually and notice sensations. Notice the way that your toes and feet feel. Just notice your feet. Notice the way they feel against the surface that they are resting on. Notice the contours of your toes and notice the way the arch of your foot goes into your heel. Notice any tension or any tight areas that your feet might be gripping onto. Notice the sides of your foot. Notice the back of your feet. And notice the way your toenails sit on your feet. Now breathe life into your feet. And while you breathe life into your feet, imagine your elders and ancestors. Imagine the way that their toes and their feet were shaped. Imagine the lines and contours of your ancestors' feet, and imagine the way that their shoes and socks felt against their bare skin. Imagine the way that surface beneath their feet felt against their skin. Feel your feet and imagine the way that your ancestors felt sitting the exact way that you are feeling now. Imagine the way that your ancestors' arches contoured into the heels of your ancestors' feet. And imagine the pain, imagine the joy, and imagine the love that those feet may have experienced. As you focus on your feet and your ancestors' feet, take a moment and thank your feet and thank the feet of your ancestors for carrying you here today, for being the pair of feet that you have. And send love to these feet and the feet of your ancestors. Send love and acceptance and feel the way that those feelings of love and acceptance manifest in your toes. Feel the way that the knuckles of your toes vibrate with love and gratitude for being your pair of feet. Sit on these feelings. Stand on these feelings. And let these feelings carry you for the rest of your day. So that's a foot scan, and the goal of that is to take a moment just to really concentrate and focus on one single part of your body, to feel what feelings come through that body when you feel feelings of love, feelings of gratitude, but also when you think of things that might be hurting. And that's going to lead me into the progressive body flexing scan. So make sure that you're breathing at a regular, easy pace that feels natural and good to your body. As you breathe, feel your forehead, tense your forehead, and scrunch your eyebrows. Hold it, release, and relax. And I want you to feel the spaciousness in your forehead that you just created. Now close your eyes tight and squint your eyes while you close them tight and hold. Now release and relax and feel all the tension from your eyes melt away. Now focus on your nose and mouth and tense those parts of your face as tight as you can. And now release. Just feel the spaciousness of this release. And just feel how the emptiness of your cheeks and lips and nose feel. Now move down to your neck and shoulders and squeeze your neck and shoulders tight together, and then release your neck and shoulders and feel how relaxed your neck and shoulders are. Now I want you to tense your arms, and I want you to tense your chest, and I want you to hold these tight, and I want you to do the same thing with your hands and your fingers, and I want you to tense them all together, and I want you to hold this, and now release. And relax into the spaciousness and feel how open your chest and your arms feel. And now I want you to squeeze your stomach and your sides and your back. And I want you to squeeze really tight. And I want you to release and relax into spaciousness. And now I want you to do the same thing with your thighs and hamstrings and your backside. Tense everything. Hold tight. And now release into spaciousness. Release into openness. And feel how free your thighs and backside feel. Now I want you to squeeze your calves, and I want you to squeeze your legs and squeeze your pelvis and squeeze your knees and shins tight. And I want you to hold these together as tight as you can, and now release. Release that hold into spaciousness and relax. And now I want you to do the last thing with your feet. I want you to focus on your feet and your toes. And I want you to really squeeze those toes and those feet together and hold. And now release into spaciousness and relax. Relax and feel how free your feet are and how light and free your toes are. And now while you're in this space, I want you to thank your body for being present and for being a manifestation of your ancestors' love. I want you to give this love back to your beautiful Black body for carrying you here and housing the love, wisdom, and intellect and spirit that is inside of you. Thank this body for being here today. Now wrap your arms around yourself and hug yourself. You're not to be ashamed. You are not to dislike this frame. This body is amazing. This body is a marvel of creation. This body is unique and beautiful and full of life and love. And now you can just release. And then just got one more to go, and I really appreciate y'all hanging with me here. This is a work that is from Dr. Brown, who I heavily cited in this work. But this is an ancestor work somatic practice that was developed by a fellow African person. So I'm gonna light a candle, and if you have a candle or incense or anything like that, feel free to light it up. And I'll give you a moment to do that if you have it. And so as I light this candle, I remember my ancestor, Cleo Brown. I lift up their name into the air and honor, and I say, Ashe.
Ashe.
Can any of y'all lift a name in the air and put it in chat, and we'll say the name here and give them honor?
Idabel Hickson.
Ashe.
Ashe. Derek Ifatade Wilson.
Ashe.
Are you saying something, Nana Linda? Let me unmute. Yeah,
Yeah, I was calling the name of my ancestors.
Ashe. What do you currently feel? What do you currently smell? Artist Colbert. Ashe.
We have a family member who says Annie Carter.
Annie Carter.
Ashe.
Ashe. What do you
Virginia Myers. Sorry.
Virginia Myers. Ashe. What about what you hear? What about what you see? While you think about this, start at the crown of your head and tap with the tips of your fingers. Continue to your cheeks, to your neck, to your shoulders, to your arms. Can't really do it on my arms. Your tummy, your thighs, your knees, your shins, all the way to your feet. Now I want you to start at your feet, and I want you to tap back up and tap at your knees, tap at your thighs, tap at your tummy, tap at your chest, tap at your shoulders, tap on your neck, tap on your cheeks, tap on your ears, and tap on the crown of your head. Now put a hand on your heart and a hand on your stomach. And sing compassion to your body. Sing compassion to where your hands are. Thank your body and thank the body of your ancestors and your ascendants for carrying you here and being such an amazing body. You are a gift to the world. Breathe in and say that inside. You are a gift to the world from your ancestors for their ascendants. One more time. I am a gift to the world from my ancestors for my ascendants. Thank you. And I hope that any of these practices inspire y'all to create and do these practices on your own for when you feel dysregulated.
William, what do you notice that happens to people over time when they engage in these practices?
I mean, I can speak for myself right now and say that when I engage in these practices, I feel I can feel the trauma and the stress melt away. I have seen that it makes people less reactive, and it allows for people to have space between grief and between trauma and be able to react in a more wise mind.
I think you can also engage in these practices when you don't have trauma.
Yeah.
When you just want to bring the spiritual forces in and be replenished and celebrate and have joy with them. So
I'll also say,
What you're saying is a really good point. Is that we try to focus on this type of work when we're going through it, but this is maintenance work. These are things that we can do on a daily to celebrate who we are, to celebrate our bodies, celebrate our people, but also to keep us mentally sharp. And that radical Zola, the self-defense for the mind, this is like going to the gym for your mind and training and sparring, doing these things with yourself or even in a group setting, doing this with your family.
I was gonna say from a neurological perspective also, and I'm so sorry, I keep seeing comments that my mic is giving feedback, so I'll work on that next time. But from a neurological perspective, also when we're tapping in certain spaces, we're tapping the vagus nerve or the vagus nerve, which is connected right to every every nerve in our body, from optical to this, that, and the third. So when we're tapping those things, I think, and that's like an innovative thing that's coming out or has been out for some years, tap therapy. But you know that white people stole our stuff because you can look no further than like our drumming practices or our dancing practices and the ways that we move. And we kind of follow the beat of a drum. So I think that African people have long since known, right, how to ground ourselves using some of these practices. So I love that Nana Linda reminds us to do these things not only in spaces of trauma or depression or anxiety, but also just to check in with ourselves and our ancestors in a way that's kind of like preventative care rather than reactionary. But thank you so much, William. I feel so much better. Like I told y'all before we started the live, I've been trying to get over a cold and it's messing my asthma up really bad. But when we did the practices, I felt like my lungs were less restricted and I could breathe a little bit easier and deeper. So, asante sana.
And I would add that, in addition to being restorative, that we can use these practices to be preparative, to get ourselves into a state to be productive and to go forth and, like we're going to sit down and write. We want to get ourselves centered and, you know, and free to focus and let the energies flow through us. So yeah, it's not just to fix something that's wrong, it's to allow us to function optimally.
And I think even from like a performance perspective and utilizing this work in a positive way to mitigate stress or to put yourself in a grounded place before you do something that could be highly stressful. Or for athletes, and being able to tap into these somatic practices so that they can approach their sports work from a more relaxed flow state.
you use the term grounded. I just think it's so important if you can walk outside barefoot and ground yourself, or hug a tree or put your hands on a tree and your feet. That feels so good.
At least 3 times a week, once a day for 15 minutes if you can. Sand, earth, bare feet, hands, and just ground and
Mm.
take in that free energy from the earth because it's free.
Yep.
Mhm.
I think I mentioned this before last month, but we have a really bright scholar here who's in the first grade. She's brilliant, but she's been having a lot of behavioral concerns, and we're all like, "What are we gonna do with her?" Like, it takes all hands on deck to like get her behaviors regulated. So I finally started. I took her on like as a one of the scholars that I work with, and I've been taking her outside, and I'm like, "You need to hug this tree, girl. Like, anytime you look at this tree, remind yourself that if this tree can ground, so too can I." And then we have like a atrium in the middle of our school where it's surrounded by windows. So anytime we out there hugging trees, we see people like looking and stuff. And I'm like, don't worry about what we're doing. This is some African stuff. Like I want to invite people to come hug a tree. But ever since I started doing that with her, I also feel better. So, and then now she like requests anytime she's having a moment, she's like, I need to meditate, I need to hug a tree. And that's like our thing. We do our sessions in the atrium where she can hug a tree and get grounded. So I love those reminders. Like you said, it's free energy, free being.
Yeah, there was a reason that our ancestors saw ourselves, human beings, as connected to nature because we are. It's all energy, all manifestations of energy. So it's so very powerful to be reminded of that, and also to be reminded that what we're feeling in our bodies, that energy we're trying to move and release, as well as bring in, is all interconnected and related. And so much of our experiences it's a function of our thinking. So if we can shift our thinking to a place where we're really perceiving how wonderful we are, how unique, how special, love our bodies and treat them as sacred, life shifts, our experience changes.
Yeah, okay. When you were asking like well, when we were doing the exercises, William, especially the feet scan, because I've heard of a whole body scan, I've never heard of a feet scan. And when we were doing it, the immediate image that came to mind, I feel so bad because I don't remember the painter's name or the artist's name. There's a painting of a black woman, and she's like in a nightgown, her hair's in rollers. I think she's getting up and getting ready for work, but she's like over the bed like this, and she's so exhausted. And I'm like, that's how I feel right now. But I always take a moment to thank my body for carrying me through, all the work that I'm trying to do, even when I know I should be resting. But we do have a question. I don't know who wants to tackle that one, but one of our family members said, "How or when can we learn more about somatic practices from an African perspective?"
Adrienne Marie is one of the first people that I would recommend. They're a very revolutionary figure, but they are very grounded in somatic work.
Can you repeat that, William?
Adrienne Marie Brown.
And where is she?
She's from Oakland.
So she's in Oakland, so they'd have to reach out to her there.
Well, she's got a website that you can go to, Adrienne Marie Brown. AdrienneMarieBrown.net. But if you Google her information will come up. She's prolific in the work that she does. A really amazing author that has written a lot about social justice liberation.
And she uses somatic terminologies and stuff.
Also, I would encourage folks to look into Kemetic yoga. That's something that I practice, and it is a direct connection to African spirituality, and a reclamation, like William said, of our Black body. So, Kemetic yoga.
Anything else that we need to pick up on that's in the chat or comments?
No, just people, folks enjoying the practices that we're having or that we've been doing. People giving me advice about eucalyptus oil since I'm fighting for my life over here. But yeah, this was great.
Well, I think there's so many ways that are a part of our African cultural tradition that we've carried forward from the beginning. And certainly the music and the drumming and the dance, the movement, all of those are celebratory for a reason. And they were infused into our cultural practice for a reason. And a lot of people take it for granted or look at arts as, from a Euro-Western perspective, as something separate. So that if you are going to hear a concert or going to see people dance, you're the audience and you're watching them. Whereas the African perspective is, no, you're a part of the music, you're a part of the dance. No, so you wouldn't just sit there, you would actually participate. So I think the more we can shift away from a fragmented Euro-Western view of the world and ourselves, the healthier we'll be.
And there are somatic practices that directly correlate with our cultural practices. Call and response, singing. Those are very African concepts and traditions, and they directly tie in to somatic work and the power of grounding and being able to resonate with a people, your people, and to be on what same note, that same harmony. And there's a power in that I think we tend to go towards that Western model of healing, and we forget about the rich culture of healing that is embedded in our DNA.
Absolutely, absolutely. The memory's there. So now more than ever, we need to bring it forward.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I like that you mentioned the memory is there, Nana Linda, because I don't think that we forgot, right? I think that they just, in their colonialist way, they repackage our practices as if it was an innovative new thing, right? Like yoga, we've been doing yoga in the East. And now all of a sudden it's like, this super cool, posh thing to do. But we've been doing stuff like that, right, on the continent. So I love that.
So we have, I think, today created tremendous Zola. It looks like our audience is very appreciative of your sharing, William. I I think that the fact that we pick it up as somatic medicine in the Euro-Western, that, what did you say? It probably came to being about what? That you said the 70s? Was it the 70s that you said
Yeah,
somatic?
the term was coined in 1976 by Thomas Hanna, but that's like the University of Oregon professor who found the health benefits of yoga and then brought it to the Western world. Like it's the same kind of concept.
The reason I bring that up is because that's what causes us to think that the Euro-Western mind has discovered certain things, when in actuality, anything that comes to them, they think they discovered it, when in fact, thousands of years prior to their discovery, it was extant. Mm-hmm. And therefore, what's in our DNA will be traceable back to those thousands of years ago, mm-hmm. which makes then our experience that much richer and fuller and more powerful. Any closing thoughts before we go today? One thing we do want to do is definitely thank you, William. It was so good to have you share this information, because now so many people are anxious and fearful and confused and don't know what to do. And I think what you've shared today in terms of the practices you shared give people something to do that can re-regulate the dysregulated, and I'll put them on the path. But so much appreciated.
I appreciate the opportunity to bring this, and I would just say that if there was one thing I could ask of our people after this, is to, when you leave here, fall into community and find healing from community, and find healing from ourselves, mm-hmm. and our people, mm-hmm. and to start to connect back with that ancient wisdom that is still very practical today, especially today in the face of what we're facing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and my closing comment is a perfect segue from William. Please do be sure to come and join us at the 56th International ABSI Convention at Bethune-Cookman. You'll get all the great consciousness raising, didactic, healing, creating Zola Mondays will all be there doing ABSI talks. So please do join us if you can in Florida.
Did you have a last thought, Dr. Linder?
It's a repetition of what other people are saying, that basically culture is our way of passing on the survival skills that we've learned so that it goes on to the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. What Western thought has taught us to do is to devalue those cultural strengths that are the things that helped us to survive all these centuries. And so we need to turn back and look at those things and look at what is in our cultural history that has helped us to survive, that has helped us to get to where we are today, and to reemerge a lot of that stuff.
Absolutely true. And certainly the work you're doing at the Cultural Wellness Center is phenomenal and has gone so very far into making that a reality in people's lives and in the community.
We have a saying at the Cultural Wellness Center that individualism and loss of culture is what makes people sick. It doesn't actually make them sick, but it contributes to all the illness and maladies that we experience. And one of the remedies for that is to rediscover the wealth of cultural knowledge that's been passed down to us from our ancestors.
Absolutely true. In fact, literally, culture means a people's way of life.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to change our way of life to that
way
which
of
is
life
synchronic with our ancestral heritage. Thank you so much for joining us today. I so appreciate you. And we will return. What will it be? The third Wednesday or Monday.
First Monday.
Yeah.
The first Monday.
No, this is the third Monday. So we'll be back in April for the first Monday, which is the
Oh, is this the third Monday? Okay, so
it's the
I had
third
it all
Monday.
wrong.
Also,
Thank
happy
you so
birthday,
very much.
Robia. Happy solar return. We love you. We know you can be with us, but sending all the love and light.
Also, just before we leave, please celebrate Women's History Month. Every month is Women's History Month, but since they've tagged a special March, then be kind to yourself and be kind to women.
All of history is women's history. We wouldn't have history without women.
Exactly. Exactly. Peace and blessings. Much love.
Right. Peace, family. I'm ending the stream now.